When I was young, I think I was groomed by an older man. If I reported it, what would happen and what would I have to do? I recently turned 18. I'm also male BTW. And I grew up in foster care from the age of 8. When in year 7, I met this guy who I'll call Jake on an app called Whisper that I had on my iPad. We first spoke on there, and then we moved over to an app called Kick. At the time, he told me that he was 18, but I have no realistic way to prove that, but he didn't look much older if he was lying. We started meeting up in secret not long after that. I was instructed to keep it secret, which I did. At this point, I was living in a residential home, and I had really bad behavior. I have matured out of this now, but at the time I was literally doing whatever I wanted. Jake would meet up with me, and he'd bring me alcohol and weed and other drugs. At the time, I thought it was a genuine friendship, and so when he told me not to tell anyone about him, I didn't. I was sexually abused by my dad when I was living with my biological family, and I really struggled with making friends in school because I had really bad behavior and would lash out at people often. I think that made me an easier target to Jake. Jake and I started a secret relationship. It started out as just being friends, but obviously he twisted it into more, and we had sex several times from as young as 12, and he used to make me pretend he was my dad, and I can't be certain, but I think he may have recorded this. I can't really describe why I went through with this, because I was never forced into anything. I did everything with my consent, which until recently I thought meant it was all okay. But I understand now that I was being manipulated and that I could not give proper consent. Jake stopped contacting me when I was around 14, about the same time as I moved in with my former foster parents, who used to check my technology regularly and started really putting in boundaries for the first time in my life, which I told him about, and he told me to delete all messages of us talking and to delete the Kick app altogether. So I no longer have any physical evidence of what happened, apart from a few selfies we took. But no proof of the grooming or that we had sexual relationship. I no longer have any of the message logs on either Kick or Whisper. I don't want to go into too much detail on here, but that's a brief overview of what happened to me. There are a lot more details that I purposefully left out. But if anything didn't make sense, or you need more information, please ask. As I mentioned, I grew up in foster care. I have a very good relationship with my former foster parents. I can't speak to them about this because if I do, I know they will legally have to report it, and I am honestly a bit worried about doing that. I have never told anyone about any of this, and I am really worried about how people will react. I know that my former foster parent will have to report it if I tell them about this, but I don't even know how to bring it up with them. It's not like someone speaking to a real parent who I could just ask advice about. It becomes a huge thing, and they would have to report it. I'm not sure I want to report it because I have no evidence of anything happening, and I feel like people aren't going to believe me. I'm not really sure what I am expecting from you guys, but maybe someone who understands a legal process a bit could tell me what would happen if I decided to report this. Would they go and question him? What would the police get me to do? Would they be at all likely to act? Because if they aren't going to do anything, then I think I would prefer to keep it to myself. Remember, I have no evidence of anything happening. Update. I wanted to post to say thank you to everyone who sent me advice and love on my last post. I really appreciated everyone trying to be so helpful and kind to me. I decided that I needed to tell my former foster carers about what happened to me when I was younger. It was a really, really awkward conversation to have, and it was honestly the most difficulty thing I've had to be open about, even more than coming out as bisexual. Before I could even say what happened, I broke down crying, like sobbing, and I have never cried in front of them before. I don't even know why I started to cry, because it's not like anything that happened to me even bothers me at all anymore. I spent years trying to get over the abuse from my dad, and I have gotten over it. It doesn't bother me at all anymore. I never even considered what Jake did to me as abuse until recently, and it does hurt me, so I'm not sure why I was crying. I don't usually cry like that. My foster carers encouraged me to go to the police to make a report, which I did with their support. It was a really strange process, and they told me they can't make any predictions about whether or not anything will actually come of my accusation. And they said either way it's going to take a while, which I think is normal. The police took me seriously, thank God, and they were not put off by the fact I had no evidence of anything. They asked if I still had the iPad, which I used to talk to Jake on, but sadly I don't. I want to say if anyone out there is reading this and is in a similar situation to myself, please come forward, please don't be silent. The police, in my experience, will take you seriously. Thank you all. I'm going to sleep now.